everyone. My name is Timothy Dobson. I'm a dual Pharm.D MBA student here at the University of Rhode Island. For today's interview, we have Ariana Houle, Pharm.D MBA, also a graduate of the dual degree program. She's here to discuss her experiences and how it's shaped her career she has today. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Ariana, where are you from?
So originally I am from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, so I didn't go too far to get to URI, typical Rhode Islander here. And then I currently reside in Cumberland, Rhode Island.
And so what year did you graduate from the dual degree program?
Yeah, I graduated back in 2016. It's hard to believe it's been over 5 years.
Mm-hmm. And so why did you choose to go to URI? Because you liked pharmacy and it was in state, or was there other reasons?
Yeah, so I knew I always wanted to be in healthcare, and I loved the blend of, I think, chemistry, but yet patient interaction you get as a pharmacist. And knowing that URI had such a great program, and it allowed me to be, get some independence, explore being on my own, but yet be very close to home. It just was such an ideal place for me to go. I have a younger sister who was 7 years younger than I am. So, she was still growing up, and I was able to go back home for key activities, which was huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have four sisters total, so I have two older, two younger, and both my younger sisters are at URI now, so it's pretty fun.
Oh, that's awesome
to be at URI while they're there too. So what is your current occupation?
So I am a pharmacist, obviously by trade still, and I work for CVS's corporate office. I'm currently on their immunization team doing all sorts of immunization operations and strategy.
So it's been busy.
It absolutely continues to be busy, but it's a definite worthwhile cause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so getting into the specific questions about the dual degree program, why did you choose to do it in the first place? Why did you choose to pursue that MBA?
So I, in my undergrad years, had needed to find classes to fill in some of my schedule from the AP credits that I had received in high school. And I have family members who their primary focus is business, and they encouraged me to take some classes to just really get a good understanding, since those principles are very important for just everyday life. And after I'd taken a few of those courses, I realized how much I liked business, and it piqued my curiosity when I learned that there was a dual pharmacy MBA degree possible. And I thought it was a great opportunity to be able to explore both areas of interest that I had and understand what that could open up for me down the road.
So I guess my next question would be, is your current position more clinical or business-based?
Definitely, I would say the one I'm in now is more of a blend. I currently oversee a lot of the clinical patient safety aspects of immunizations, but even when you're in a clinical role, I think at least in my role today, there's always strategy to it where my MBA skills come in day to day. It's interesting too, because I've held different roles at CVS Health's corporate office, and some of them have been very not clinical, where I've leaned a lot more on the business degree that I've had. So that's I think one of the biggest advantages is having both. I've been able to flex and take different jobs that sometimes have a little bit more of that clinical side, but yet others, with the business side, I'm not completely exempt from taking things like that. So I've loved the flexibility it's offered.
Well, that's essentially why I pursued it. I want both sides of it. I understand that, in the end, money's a big factor in healthcare. So, having that financial understanding and that strategic management, understanding is hopefully going to benefit me in the future. And that's why ultimately I chose to pursue it. And so when you were doing your MBA, how did you integrate the coursework into your normal pharmacy curriculum?
Yeah, I think, it made me bring a lot more balanced view to what we were learning in pharmacy school. Again, a lot of the curriculum is very clinical based, but there are some principles that we learned that are not clinical based. And I think bringing in the business side of what I was learning in those classes really helped me understand I think having a more wholesome application of the material. So for example, we know what clinical, decisions we need to make for patients, how you think about what medications they might need to try. I think the business actually made me think about the cost aspect, for example, too, right? So it's not always just pick the next line of treatment in the algorithm, but what might like impact the patient? What's the cost perspective? Is there something cheaper that's an alternative? And how do you weigh that and think about it from a cost benefit analysis? And, you know, it's not about the money necessarily, but those are the things that impact our patients and stop them from taking certain medications. So I think by doing both at the same time, it made me a lot more of a stronger practitioner in practice. And I worked in the retail setting when I was in school. So I was able to translate a lot of what I was getting from pharmacy and business to the interactions I have with my patient day to day, which I thought was super, super beneficial, not only for myself and the view I had on the world, what I could offer my patients as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm actually on my current rotation with CVS, the specialty innovation team. I've been able to, you know, do more of those cost-effective, you know, cost-benefit analysis of certain, you know, medications, depending on, you know, contracts and you know, reimbursements, and you know, just standard of care, optimizing that for the patients. You know, maximizing the standard of care while minimizing cost is so important nowadays with the expensive nature of healthcare. And you know,
Absolutely.
the MBA courses, at least on my my rotations, I've been able to apply some of those concepts. And you know, if I didn't have that business background, I don't think I would have as well of an understanding of those concepts, you know, for seeing them in the real world. So it's definitely benefited me. So what did you specifically like about the MBA program at URI?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the biggest takeaway about what I liked about it so much was the diversity of the student body that participated in the MBA program. So I chose to do our evening weekend program. So I was taking my MBA classes at the same time as pharmacy. Not only did it give me diversity of thought as well, you know, again, you're in such a clinical heavy curriculum during the day. It almost challenged me to think differently, use a different part of my brain by taking the business classes at night. But the students who tended to come to the evening program were working individuals who came from all different types of backgrounds, which really challenged my thinking even more than the classes themselves were, because these individuals brought so much real world experience, which I had not had at that point, being in school all my life. You know, you have a part-time job here and there, you start to get some of that experience, but these are individuals who were in the workforce for years and years, and you get so much rich experience just from that on the job, you know, like the functions that they do and their day to day that they would bring into the classroom. And I definitely reaped the benefits from that. So I loved the fact that you were able to interact with people who experience business in their day to day and could actually apply the concepts and share that knowledge of how they apply the concepts in real life. I think it made me really retain a lot more than I would have otherwise.
Yeah, no, it is interesting when you're going into a class and you know, you've been with college students for the past 4 or 5 years, and then you get into a class and there's a you know, 45-year-old, 35-year-old, and a 28-year-old. Yeah, it's interesting, and it's great to hear their perspectives on things and how they can take in their real life experiences. I mean, even though I don't have it, I can understand how they talk through it and how they're applying the concepts. So hopefully I'll be able to do that in the future. And you know, think back to how this person solved it in class and how they used it in real life. And that's what I hope to do. And I don't doubt that, you know, the classes that I've taken, I've enjoyed. I'm in my supply chain management class right now.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I know. It's honestly one of my favorite courses in the program. I know. If I could go back, I might have just done supply chain in the first place. But it's very interesting. It definitely brings in new perspectives. So what was your favorite course in the MBA program? Do you have one in specific?
Ooh, I think what I liked, so I'm definitely a people person. I loved organizational behavior because I think that was also one of the courses that was extremely applicable to being a practitioner in pharmacy. So, you know, organizational behavior, you learn a lot about how do you interact with the people around you. That's where you learn, you know, concepts such as what's their personalities and that everyone has different personalities and you can connect with people by having an understanding of those personalities. And certain techniques will work well with some, but not with others. I think that was also where we learned the different types of learners that we are as adults. Some people are more of a visual learner. Some people are more of a, you have to get the experience and learn while you're experiencing something. And that to me, I think was just so eye-opening and resonating, because again, I could translate it to my patients. Some patients need a nice visual of what they need to do. Let's just say, as we're saying, how do you take your meds? Some of them are visual. Some of them need to go through that exercise of putting their pills in the pill box to really have an understanding of, okay, this is what I take at this time and what day. And I think, a one size fits all approach does not work as we think about counseling patients. So I love that, because I think I took a lot away from that to translate to the practice of pharmacy.
Yeah, speaking about organizational behavior, you think that you're going into the class and you know everything. You think you would know how people think and how people act and how you would manage people. But it was pretty eye-opening, the different strategies that they bring up and the different concepts just on case studies and stuff like that. And then you think about your workplace and you're like, why didn't that work one time? Even at my hometown pharmacy, and you can see it. It all interplays with each other in the workplace. So. I definitely enjoyed that class too. But I still think that supply chain is
still your favorite?
Still my favorite. It's been interesting with COVID too, because most of those classes are online now. And even actually, I think I've taken all my classes online. They're now moving back into the in-person classes. So hopefully I'll be able to take one or two classes in person. Actually, that brings up a good point. How did you complete the coursework? Did you finish it before your rotations, or did you complete it while you were on rotations?
So back when I was actually taking the classes, it was a requirement that you took a class in your last semester, being the spring semester where you were doing rotations. They wouldn't let you finish early. My understanding now is that you can finish early, which is a huge advantage if you want to bang it out and get it done prior to rotations. I think, my advice would be just understanding what your course load is. Especially with rotations, if you have to take classes in rotations, it's not the end all be all. It's just, you might want to think strategically about what's a good course to take matched up with what rotations you're on. If you've got a more intensive rotation, may not be a good time to take a class. Whereas if you have one that's going to allow you to have a little more flexibility or balance, it could be a good time to take courses. But again, that's not for everyone. And if you have that ability to take them sooner, then that's, a great option for people too. I did not struggle on rotations. Again, I think it was the same as when I was in classes. I looked at it as a break at the end of the day. Because again, you're just in the pharmacy work, and I almost really looked forward to just seeing everyone. And actually, I liked going back to class, because I think for rotations, I was almost missing the classroom setting a bit. So having the opportunity to go back to class was still very fun.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a relief at the end of the day. I would agree. On rotations, it does depend on the rotation. I would say that some rotations are more strenuous than others. So it's just being, having that strategic outlook on it. I know that the supply chain one that I'm taking now, although it is a little bit added work to my normal, weekly tasks, it has helped me apply the concepts that I'm learning in class to my actual rotation, which is beneficial. It's going to, solidify those concepts that I can use later in life. So I think there's benefits and drawbacks to waiting to finish up the courses. For myself, I have two or three more courses to take. So I'm going to probably take one over the J term and then two in the and then two in the spring semester. And then I have my final block off. So my final 6 weeks, I'll probably just be wrapping up those classes then. So.
Good. And that's another, I think, example for how to be strategic. You said two things. Number one, using your breaks if you can to try to lessen the load. So maybe you only have to take one or two, or again, get a head start and not have to do any of them. Or to your point, if you're going to have that off block, and putting it there is a great way. But, I would recommend, and I'm sure, a lot of, the other alumni have said this, is working with the staff and with Lisa to really think strategically about how do I match this up with the courses that I know I have coming. And all the mentors are fantastic. for
Yeah,
that.
well, I was going to say for all the students that I said it at the panel too, but all the students that are listening to this right now, Lisa is the Denise of the MBA program. So, you know, she's always there for you. She's great. Even though she mapped it all out for me, I didn't follow it to a T, but if I had followed it to a T, I'd probably be done right now. But you know, things change. I mean, COVID definitely put a kink in some things. So, but in the end, you know, it's going to work out for me. Do you think that you know, the workload was too much for you? I know you had mentioned that it wasn't too terrible for you if you space it out.
I don't think so. I think there was, you know, maybe a few times where I was taking 2 classes at once where that got a little bit tougher, or, you know, sometimes the weekend was tough when you're just, you know, you have such a busy week. But again, I think for those who have not gotten into it yet and are on the fence about doing it, the reward is so huge that even though you have to put in a little bit of extra effort, you don't feel that effort because it's just, you're getting so much out of it. At least that's how I felt. I felt it was very manageable. And again, if you're getting a head start, taking advantage of the summers, I definitely did that as well. That was a great way to space it out and spread it out so you didn't feel overwhelmed. And again, giving that flexibility. So if you know you're going to have maybe a more difficult semester in school or a more difficult rotation, that you're not forced to have to do that. But even if, I think if you are, there was rotations where, you know, I think working from like 7:30 till at least 5:36, there was, you know, like inpatient kind of rotations. And then I would immediately have to go to class, and those were long days. But again, I never felt completely overburdened by it. Cause again, it was just, I knew I was getting so much out of the experience.
Yeah, no, I would agree. There are some days that you do feel stressed, and you know, I have like a lot on my plate, but I know in the end it's gonna be worthwhile. You know, graduating with both degrees on time. You just got to look to the end. But it's definitely hasn't been as stressful as people probably think it is.
I agree.
That's my personal opinion, and yours too. It could be different for other people, but you know, like we said at the panel, that the students shouldn't, if they're willing to go do it, and if they're interested, they should just go do it, because you know, why not? Essentially, you know, if you want that business background, yeah, you have nothing to lose.
You can always stop, and I know that's probably not the you know, typical thing to say, but you'll still get benefit from the few classes you take, and at least then you can try, you can see if it's your interest, and then you will never lose that knowledge that you got from at least those few classes. But then you always have the choice to make it at some point, but you can't get it unless you start. And I think that's to your point, like you got to get over that barrier and just make the leap of faith and start. Because then it, you know, it will figure itself out. And again, you guys, I think pharmacists, we're all very smart people. We're all really hardworking, driven people. And that's just a recipe for success in doing an opportunity like this.
Yeah. So my final question, Ariana, is what advice do you have for current and prospective students that you wish you knew prior to starting the dual degree program?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think we talked about it a little bit. I wish I knew to plot it out more. And that's probably why I've said it so much, because that is an internal thing I wish I knew. I definitely would encourage everyone to sit down, you know, especially with Lisa, to understand what are the courses, but not only what are the courses, but what type, like, what do you learn? Like, what is it, a memorization type course? Is this more of a writing course? Is this group project work, right? To really get a sense of what are going to be the expectations, and then have an understanding of, again, how does that match up with at least your courses in core and any of the supplemental classes in your P2 and P3 year, because you obviously won't know your rotations. Just to be, again, as proactive as you can for plotting it out, because the effort that you put in there will pay off later on. The other thing I wish I knew was just, really trying to think about finishing early. So again, I did not have that option, but I'll encourage everyone, if you can finish early, that is good, because then if you want to focus on certain rotations and give it your all, you don't have to worry about classes. It's not a bad thing, but it was something I wish I could have done, because I actually could have finished early. There were semesters I didn't take classes in P2 and P3 year because I needed to save some for the end.